Going down south of us, at least, to the Sunshine State of Florida. Talk about those Florida Gators. In 2023, they had a record of 5-7, and were much improved in 2024. Had an 8-5 record. Billy Napier is in his third season as head coach there. Started out really, really rough, but finished very strong, even though, still finished unranked. But great coaching job by Billy Napier. People were ready to run him out of the building after the second game of the season. And a lot of us thought, myself included, that he wasn't going to make it the next week, that they were going to pull the trigger that quickly. But to Florida's credit, they didn't do it. They were smart. Hate to say it, that they were smart, and let Billy Napier rally that team, and rally that team he did. They were bought in to everything he was selling, and they played extremely motivated and tough down the stretch.
I wish they did. I think if you are a Florida fan, which we are definitely not, you have to view this season as a complete success. Florida went into this season with arguably on paper at the time the toughest schedule in the country. Now, as it played out, Florida State ended up being total trash, which skewed that a little bit. But just looking at what they went through at the end of the year, they had to play Georgia, Texas, LSU, and Ole Miss before that game at Florida State. And already had 3 losses coming into the Georgia game. And you're looking at that schedule down the stretch, and you're like, well, they may lose every one of those games except for Florida State. And they didn't. They beat LSU, and they beat Ole Miss, and then they beat Florida State after a strong showing against Georgia. Billy Napier did a fantastic job to rally that team that looked like they were beaten and had no direction to a team that looked like they had confidence with a rising star freshman quarterback that they can build around. DJ Lagway is certainly one of the breakout players of the 2024 season, despite his stats not being quite as good as people give him credit for. They're building something in Florida, which you always thought Billy Napier could do if he was just given time. But it looked like they weren't going to give him time. They were going to run him out of the building. And by the end of the year, he looked like he might be the SEC Coach of the Year. So for Florida, I think this was a great turnaround of a season. Coming off a year last year where they didn't even make a bowl game, which that's really bad in Gainesville. And then looking at that daunting schedule they had going in and closing out with some wins, finishing up at 8-5. I think that was a complete success. So for me, I gave Florida a grade of a B+.
Man, is Billy Napier going to be like the first likable coach to coach Florida ever?
In our lifetime, yes.
I mean, seriously. You see his interviews on the field and after the games, and you can't help but pull for the guy. But I still won't pull for Florida. So don't. I'm not pulling for Florida. I hate the Gators. Gator hater number 1 here. So yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from. From where they were to how they finished. I'd give them a B.
Okay.
I'm interested to see how Lagway actually turns out, because, like you said, like he got a lot of hype, and he did a good job, but didn't have any real stats to back up any of that stuff.
Yeah. So for our final grade for Florida, I'm tending to stick kind of firm at B+, because honestly, in talking with some of my coworkers and stuff who went to Florida or Florida fans, I was tempted to give them an A- here, actually. I really think that this season for Florida was the season that they were kind of looking for. Their expectations because of their schedule were low. And because it got off to such a bad start, they were even lower by the middle of the year. And for them to kind of pull themselves up, get all those wins down the stretch to close out the year, get back to a bowl game and win convincingly in that bowl game. They've got a freshman quarterback they're rallied around. I really think this was a good year for Florida. So I'm gonna put my foot down on this one. I'm gonna give Florida a B+ for our grade for this year.
All right, I'll go with a B+.